Hello and welcome to edupediaworld.com. In the last session, we have studied about how a consumer reaches his equilibrium under cardinal and ordinal utility approach. We have already studied about what demand exactly is. In this session, we'll be studying about one of the most basic concept of economics, that is the law of demand. Before starting law of demand, let's just understand what demand exactly is. Let's just revise that what is demand. As we have already studied, demand is consisting of three attributes, that is desire to buy, willingness to pay, and ability to pay. If we revise, I have taken example of iPhone 6 as a product. Suppose I want to buy iPhone 6 as well as I have the willingness also, but I don't have financial power in order to buy that product. Thus, that won't create demand for the product. Similarly, if I have the desire, I also have the ability, but I am a miser, I don't want to spend so much money to buy the product, then also that will not create the demand. Thus, in order to create a demand for the product, a person should have the desire, plus he should have the willingness to pay for that particular product, plus he should also have the monetary power in order to get that product. This will make a demand. If we look from the organization point of view, a complete definition of demand would be the quantity demanded of a product, the price at which commodity is demanded, the time period over which a commodity is demanded, and the market area in which a commodity is demanded. If all these four things are mentioned for a product, then that will create a meaningful statement for an organization. Now let's just understand what is the law of demand. The law of demand states the nature of relationship between the quantity demanded of a product and the current price of that product. Although quantity demanded of a commodity depends also on many other factors, for example, consumers' income, price of the substitutes and complementary goods, consumers' taste and preferences, advertisement, etc. But the current price is the most important and the only determinant of demand in the short run. Thus, the law of demand states that all the other things remaining constant, that is, consumers' income should be constant, advertisement should be constant, consumers' taste and preference should be constant, as well as price of supplementary substitutes and complementary goods should also be constant. The quantity demanded of a commodity increases when its price decreases and decreases when its price increases. So we can see here that there is inverse relationship between the quantity demanded of the commodity and the price of the commodity. Basically, the quantity demanded of the commodity is dependent on the price of the commodity. The other thing is that the law holds under Ceteris Paribus assumption. Now, what is Ceteris Paribus assumption? It means that all other things remaining the same. Next, we'll study about the assumptions of the law of demand. First assumption is that income level should remain constant. Suppose the price of a product increases and the consumer's income also increases accordingly. Thus, if we see the result, there will be no change in the demand of the product. Thus, the law of demand will not work. But if the income level is same and does not change, but the price of the product changes, suppose increases, then he has to lower down the consumption of that commodity because he has to allocate his money income, the same money income, on all other alternative uses he's doing. Now next assumption is taste and preference of the buyer should not change. Suppose the price of the commodity is same, but consumers' taste and preference changes. So there will be like lower demand of that particular product on he was initially spending, even if the price does not change. The quantity demanded will go down even if its price does not change, because the taste and preference of the consumer has changed. So it's very important to see the effect of law of demand. The taste and preference of the buyer should not change. Next assumption is prices of other goods should remain constant. Now, in order to clearly understand this assumption, let's take an example. Suppose we say that prices of related goods should remain constant. Now, under related goods, there are two types of goods which can come. First one is substitutes, and the second one is complementary goods. Now, what are substitute goods? For example, tea and coffee, raincoat and umbrella. Which means if I'm not using this good, in place of this good, I can use this good. So such category of goods are known as substitute goods. Now the relationship between two price and quantity demanded of two substitute goods is positive. That is, there is a direct relationship. If the price of tea increases, the demand of coffee will automatically increase. Similarly, if the price of raincoat increases, the demand of umbrella will automatically increase. So if there is a positive relationship between two goods, these goods are known as substitute goods. Similarly, what is complementary goods? For example, car and petrol. Now we cannot use car instead of petrol, as well as we cannot use petrol instead of car. We have to use both hand in hand. So such type of goods are known as complementary goods. Now if we see the relationship between the price and quantity demanded of these two goods, there is a negative relationship. Means if the price of car increases, the demand of quantity demanded of petrol will decrease. So if there is negative relationship between two goods, when we compare the price and quantity demanded, those goods are known as complementary goods. And if there is a positive relationship between two goods, when we compare the price and the quantity demanded, those goods are known as substitute goods. Means if the price of raincoat increases, the quantity demanded of umbrella will also increase. So this is a positive relationship, and here it's a negative relationship. Now we say that in order to see the effect of law of demand, the price of related goods, that is substitute goods and complementary goods, should not change. For example, first we take substitute goods. Suppose if we say that tea is our main product on which we are seeing the effect of law of demand. Suppose the price of tea increases and the price of coffee is constant. Thus, people will switch over their consumption from tea to coffee. so the demand of tea will go down. But if the price of coffee also changes, that is, suppose the price of coffee increases, thus there will be no change in the demand of tea. So we can see here there we cannot see the effect of law of demand. Thus the price of substitute should remain constant. Similarly, in case of complementary goods also, suppose if the price of car increases and the price of petrol is the same, car is our main product on which we are seeing the law of demand. So if the price of car increases and the price of petrol remains the same, thus automatically the demand of car will go down to see the effect of law of demand. But similarly, if the price of petrol decreases, car prices are increasing and the price of petrol are decreasing, thus consumer will rethink, it's just one time investment, I have to invest on car, but the price of petrol is going down, so the consumer may increase the demand of car. Thus here will not be able to see the effect of law of demand. Thus that is why it is assumed that the prices of related goods, that is substitute goods and complementary goods, should remain constant. Now next assumption is that no new substitutes for the commodity. If there are new substitutes for the commodity, even if the price of that particular commodity on which we are seeing the effect of law of demand is the same, because there are new substitutes available, the demand of that main commodity will automatically go down because people will try to use the new substitutes of the commodity. So we won't be able to see the effect of law of demand. Similarly, the next assumption is price rise in future should not be expected. Suppose the price of onion is going up, but still I am expecting that in future it will further go up. Thus I will increase the demand of onion currently because I am expecting that the price of onion will go up in future. So why don't I purchase it in bulk and store it for future so that I don't have to face the pinch of increased price in the future. Thus it is assumed that price rise in future should not be expected. Next assumption is that advertising expenditure should remain the same. Advertising expenditure basically refers to the different ways of communicating it to the main consumer about the product and attracting the consumer towards the product. Suppose if I increase the advertising expenditure and start increasing the frequency of the ads on television of a particular product, then ultimately the consumer will increase the demand of that product because he will have that in his mind that this particular product is available in the market. So advertising expenditure should not go up or should not change, it should be constant to see the effect of law of demand. Now after studying the assumptions of the law of demand, we will study the law of demand through a demand schedule and a demand curve. Now what is a demand schedule? When we represent the law of demand in a tabular form, that is known as demand schedule. A demand schedule is a tabular presentation of different prices of a commodity and its corresponding quantity demanded per unit of time. Let's take an example. We draw a table we take the price of the commodity, suppose in dollar, and the quantity demanded of a commodity, suppose in 1000, and suppose our commodity, the product which we are talking about, is shirts. Now, when the price of the product was $800, the quantity demanded was say 8. When the price of the product fell down to $600, the quantity demanded increased to 15,000 shirts. Likewise, $400, then again the quantity demanded increased, then again it fell down, then again the quantity demanded increased, then again it fell down to $200, then again the quantity demanded increased, and then again when it was $100, then again the quantity demanded increased to 80,000 shirts. So we can see here, when we represent the law of demand in a tabular form, then it is known as this particular table is known as a demand schedule. So we can see here, when as and on the price of the shirts is going down, the quantity demanded is increasing. Thus, after the demand schedule, if we plot all these points, that is the price and the quantity demanded on a graph, we'll get a demand curve. Thus, a demand curve is a graphical presentation of the demand schedule. A demand curve is obtained by plotting a demand schedule. Let's see how do we obtain a demand curve. This is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. On the x-axis we denote the quantity demanded, and on the y-axis we take the price of the commodity. Now we'll be studying about various graphs in economics, and it's very hard to remember that what do we denote on the x-axis and what do we denote on the y-axis. So a very basic fundamental is that all the independent units are denoted on the y-axis and all the dependent units are denoted on the x-axis. If we revise the law of demand, price is the independent unit. We see the effect of price on the quantity demanded. All other things remaining same, if the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. Thus, quantity demanded is a dependent unit. It is dependent on the price of the commodity, whereas price is the independent unit. So we denote the price on the y-axis and the quantity demanded on the x-axis. Just remember that all the independent units are denoted on the y-axis and all the dependent units are denoted on the x-axis. Now if we plot all the points of the schedule on the graph, we'll get a curve like this. This is our demand curve DD. We can see here, suppose when the price was P1, the quantity demanded was Q0. When the price fell down to P, the quantity demanded increased to Q. When the price further fell down to P0, the quantity demanded increased to Q1. So we can see here we have obtained 3 points on the demand curve A, B, C, and we can see here that the curve is negatively sloping towards its right. That is, the nature of the curve is that it's negatively sloping towards its right, which means that there is a inverse relationship between the price of the commodity and the quantity demanded. So this demand graph shows us the law of demand. Now, after studying the law of demand through the demand schedule and a demand curve, we'll be studying that what are the reasons behind why the law of demand works. That is, we are going to study now about the factors behind the law of demand. First factor is substitution effect. When the price of a commodity falls, prices of its substitute remaining unchanged, that is constant, then the substitutes relatively become costlier as compared to the main product. Since a utility maximizing consumer substitutes cheaper goods for costlier ones, demand of the cheaper commodity increases. That is why the demand of the main commodity will increase. The increase in demand on account of this factor is known as the substitution effect. Suppose the price of tea has fallen down compared to the price of coffee, which is the same. Thus, coffee as compared to tea will become a costlier product. So, consumers will shift their consumption from coffee to tea, which will increase the demand of tea. Thus, we can see the law of demand is working. Price of tea has fallen down and its demand has increased. So, increase in demand of tea due to this effect, due to this factor is known as substitution effect. Next factor is income effect. When the price of a commodity falls, other things remaining same, then the real income of the consumer increases. Now, what is real income? Real income basically refers to the purchasing power of the consumer. Now, his purchasing power increases as he is required to pay less for a given quantity. This increase in real income encourages the consumer to demand more goods and services. Thus, there is an increase in demand due to increase in the real income of the consumer, and increase in demand due to this effect is known as income effect. Now, to understand the income effect better, we take an example. Suppose a consumer has an income of $10,000 per month, and in this income he used to spend on petrol say $100, and that time the price of petrol was $10 per liter. So ultimately he was able to buy 10 liters of petrol in a month. Now suppose the price of petrol fell down to $8 per liter. So we can see that here there is a real increase in his income. He has to spend $100 to buy 10 liter of petrol. Now he has to spend only $80 to buy 10 liter of petrol. So there is a real income increase, and the real increase in income here is $20. Now he can spend this additional $20 to buy the same commodity, petrol, where he was buying 10 liter of petrol in $100, now after the price of petrol has gone down, he will be able to buy 12.5 liter of petrol in $100. Thus we can see that there is increase in demand of the product, that is petrol, when its price has gone down, because there has an increase in the purchasing power of the consumer. There has been increase in the real income of the consumer. Thus he will be increasing the quantity demanded of the product. Now, increase in quantity demanded of the product due to this particular factor, we call it as income effect. Now, the third factor behind the law of demand is the utility maximizing behavior of the consumer. When the price of a commodity falls, the consumer thinks that if he start spending more on the commodity, he'll get more value as compared to the money's income spent on the commodity. Thus, he increases the demand of the product. The utility maximizing behavior of the consumer under the condition of diminishing marginal utility is also responsible for increase in demand for a normal good when its price falls. Thus, he increases the demand of the product when the price of that particular product falls. Increase in demand due to this particular factor is known as utility maximizing behavior. Now, after studying the factors which give effect to the law of demand, let's now study about the exceptions to the law of demand. There are certain conditions where the law of demand does not work. Now, what are those conditions? First condition is expectations of further price rise in future. Suppose the price of a commodity has increased, but if the consumer expects that in future also the price will go up, the consumer will increase the current demand of that particular commodity to avoid the pinch of price rise in future. Thus, even if the price is increasing, he will increase the demand of the commodity. So here the law of demand will not work. The second exception is status goods. Some goods people purchase in order to flash their money income. The law of demand does not apply to commodities which are used as a status symbol, or for enhancing the social prestige, or for displaying wealth and riches. For example, gold, precious stones, rare paintings, antiques, etc. Rich people buy such goods mainly because their prices are high and buy more of them when the price move up, rather in order to decrease buying less. This is just because they want to flash their wealth and power to the society. Now, next exception is giffen goods. Now, what are giffen goods? Giffen goods basically is defined as inferior quality good whose demand increases even if its price increases. There are several inferior commodities consumed by the poor households as their essential commodity. If the prices of such goods increases, its demand increases instead of decreasing, because in case of a given good, income effect of a price rise is greater than its substitution effect. The reason is, when the price of an inferior good increases, income remaining the same, poor people cut the consumption of the superior substitutes so that they are able to buy sufficient quantity of the inferior good to meet their basic needs. Now we can depict it more comprehensively through an example. For instance, let us suppose that the monthly income of a poor household is rupees 200 per month, and it has a minimum requirement of at least 30 kg of food grains in a month. So the way they allocate this limited money income is they spend rupees 100 on bajra at the rate of rupees 5 per kg. So they purchase 20 kg of bajra, and they spend rupees 100 on wheat, which is at the rate of 10 per kg. So they purchase 10 kg of wheat in order to meet their minimum monthly consumption of 30 kg. Now suppose the price of bajra increases to rupees 6 per kg. Now even if the price of bajra has increased to rupees 6 per kg, but still it is cheaper to the price of wheat, which is 10 per kg. And because their monthly income is same and they need at least a minimum consumption of 30 kg of food grain, so they have to decrease the consumption of wheat and they will increase the consumption of bajra in order to meet their monthly consumption of 30 kg. So what they will do, they will start consuming 25 kg of bajra at the rate of rupees 6 per kg, and they will decline the consumption of wheat by 5 kg and they will consume 5 kg of wheat at the rate rupees 10 per kg. So ultimately they are spending rupees 200, which is their total monthly income, for meeting their monthly consumption, which is 30 kg. So we can see here that the law of demand is not working on given goods, that is inferior quality of goods. Even if their price increases, they are still cheaper to their substitute, which are superior quality goods. So here the law of demand does not work. Now this was all about the law of demand. In the next session, we'll be studying about what is shift in demand curve and what are the various elasticities of demand. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you and have a great day.